I pushed through the heavy oak doors at 2:17 a.m., the silence hitting me like a velvet fist. None of that chaotic echo you get in empty bars, but a deep, breathing quiet that wrapped around your ribs and squeezed. My boots scuffed the marble floor, too loud in the hush, and I froze, heart jackhammering from the adrenaline crash. The security guard had clocked out an hour ago, leaving the place to the night owls and insomniacs, but I wasn't here for peace. I was here to hide, to nurse the bruise blooming on my knuckles from punching that mirror in a fit of what the fuck a doing rage. The circulation desk loomed like a sentinel in the dim glow of emergency lights, empty except for a single lamp casting long shadows over stacks of returns. I veered left, toward the philosophy section on the third floor, my go-to blackout spot since high school, when Dad's endless deployments left Mom popping pills and me devouring Nietzsche like it was candy. God is dead, I'd mutter to the empty trailer in rural Ohio, feeling profound until the hangover hit. Tonight, though, the words blurred on the page, my vision swimming as I slumped against a shelf, the musty scent of aged paper grounding me just enough to keep the sobs at bay. That's when I heard it, a soft rustle, like pages turning in reverse, followed by the creak of a chair. I whipped my head up, expecting a janitor or some nosy grad student, but it was him, Elias, the night librarian I'd glimpsed a dozen times, but never really seen. He was perched on a rolling ladder 3 shelves up, his lean frame silhouetted against the moonlight filtering through the arched windows, a worn volume of Whitman cradled in his hands. Mid-30s, maybe, with that effortless salt and pepper at his temples that screamed, "I've read every book here," and still cry at the endings. His glasses caught the light, magnifying eyes the color of faded denim, and when he glanced down, there was no judgment, just a quiet arch of his brow, like he'd been expecting me all along. "You look like you could use a map out of that storm," he said, his voice low and steady, laced with that East Coast clip that hinted at Boston winters and Ivy League regrets. He didn't climb down, just extended the book, Leaves of Grass, its spine cracked from love. I stared, mouth dry, because no one had ever handed me poetry instead of a punch. Or maybe just a place to sit. I snatched it, more out of spite than gratitude, and dropped onto the threadbare rug below, flipping it open to a random page. Song of Myself stared back, all that raw, pulsing American soul. I celebrate myself and sing myself, and for the first time that night, the words didn't mock me. They hummed, syncing with the wild thrum in my chest. Elias descended the ladder with the grace of someone who'd mapped these aisles 1,000 times, his flannel shirt untucked over khakis that had seen better decades, and settled cross-legged beside me, close enough that I caught the faint cedar of his cologne mixed with ink. We didn't talk much at first. He pulled a thermos from his satchel, black coffee, strong as tar, and poured me a cup without asking. I sipped, the bitterness cutting through the whiskey fog, and muttered, "Got kicked out." Again. It was the most honest thing I'd said all semester to anyone. He nodded, not prying, just tracing the edge of his mug with a thumb scarred from paper cuts. "Libraries are for the exiled. Always have been." His smile was small, private, like a secret bookmark slipped between pages. And in that moment, with the university's spires looming outside like judgmental fingers, I felt seen. Not as the reckless fuck-up who'd flunked 2 classes and ghosted his therapist, but as Levi, the kid who'd once dreamed of road-tripping Route 66 with a guitar and no regrets. By dawn, the coffee was gone, and so was half the book. Elias quoted Whitman from memory. Do I contradict myself? Very well, then I contradict myself. And I laughed, real this time, because yeah, that was me. Party animal 1 minute, existential wreck the next. He didn't push for my story, but he shared slivers of his. How he'd traded a PhD in literature for shelving books after his partner of 10 years bailed for a tenure-track gig in California, leaving him with a 1-bedroom in Ypsilanti and a habit of losing himself in silence. "Silence isn't empty," he said, stacking the returns with deliberate care. "It's where the real stories breathe." I filed that away, too buzzed on caffeine and connection to realize it was the first crack in my armor. The next week blurred into a haze of mandatory counseling sessions and crash couch surfing with buddies who owed me favors. But every night, like a moth to a flame, I gravitated back to Hatcher. Elias was always there, a constant in the chaos, recommending beat poets who howled my rage or Southern Gothic tales that mirrored the rot in my family tree. We'd talk, whispered debates on Kerouac's wanderlust versus Baldwin's unflinching gaze at love's sharp edges, until the sky lightened to bruised purple over the Huron River. One rainy Thursday, I confessed the full ugly. The party's masking Dad's ghost, the hookups that left me hollower than before, the gnawing fear that I'd peak at 22 and fade into some Midwest mediocrity. Elias listened, chin on his fist, and when I trailed off, he reached over, his hand brushing mine on the armrest, electric, tentative. You're not fading, Levi. You're just unfolding. That touch lingered, a spark in the stacks, and when our eyes met, the air thickened with unspoken want. He pulled back first, clearing his throat with a soft chuckle. Boundaries. Library policy. But his flush said otherwise, and mine burned hotter. I started showing up sober, trading red Solo cups for dog-eared paperbacks. Elias taught me the Dewey Decimal Dance, how to trace a thread through history's weave, and in return, I blasted Springsteen from my phone on low volume, his gravelly anthems filling the quiet with Born to Run dreams. We were opposites on paper. Me, the tattooed tornado from trailer parks. Him, the bespectacled scholar who'd quoted Foucault at his own wedding. But in those hours, we fit. Like puzzle pieces from different boxes, jagged edges locking just right. It escalated on a crisp November eve, the kind where frost etches the windows like lace. I'd aced a makeup exam, first time in months, and burst in waving the paper like a flag. Elias grinned, rare and wide, and pulled me into a hug that smelled of old books and possibility. Our bodies aligned, his heartbeat steady against my frenzy, and when I tilted up, lips brushing his jaw, he didn't pull away. The kiss was slow, deliberate, a question answered in the affirmative, tongues tentative at first, then hungry, all the pent-up poetry pouring out. We broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed, his glasses fogged. Us, it's dangerous, he murmured, but his fingers tangled in my hair, holding on. Danger's my middle name. I shot back, reckless as ever, because loving him felt like finally finding the map to that storm inside. But storms have eyes, and ours was brewing. Winter clamped down on Ann Arbor like a bad ex, relentless, gray, and full of passive-aggressive snowdrifts that buried the bike paths overnight. Campus turned into a ghost town of bundled figures scurrying between heated buildings, but the library? It pulsed warmer than ever, a hearth in the heart of the cold. Elias and I carved out our nook in the rare books room, away from the undergrad hordes, where the air hummed with the weight of first editions and forbidden glances. Our rhythm solidified. I'd arrive post-class, shedding the weight of lectures on queer theory that hit too close to home. Ironic, since I'd only come out to myself 6 months prior, in a drunken voicemail to my sister that she pretended never happened. Elias would be there, cataloging illuminated manuscripts with that monk-like focus, his dark hair tousled from running hands through it in thought. We'd steal moments, his thumb grazing my wrist as he passed a volume of Ginsberg's Howl, my knee pressing against his under the table during whispered readings of Auden's elegies. Sex came later, inevitable as the solstice. It started with a snowstorm trapping us after closing, the plow stalled outside, and no backup shift to relieve him. We barricaded in his tiny office behind the reference desk, the space cramped with filing cabinets and a sagging couch that smelled faintly of mildew. This is madness, he laughed, breath hitching as I backed him against the wall, my hands fumbling with his belt like it was the key to some forbidden archive. Madness is my specialty, I growled, nipping his earlobe, and then we were tumbling, clothes shedding like autumn leaves, his body lean and mapped with faint scars from a childhood bout of chickenpox, mine a canvas of impulsive ink. A compass rose on my ribs for the directions I never took, a faded rebel yell script across my collarbone from a skinnered face. He was gentle at first, reverent, tracing my tattoos with lips that quoted E. Cummings between kisses. I carry your heart with me. But I pushed, reckless, pinning his wrists, drawing out moans that echoed soft in the stacks. Afterward, tangled in a wool blanket he'd stashed for overnight shifts, we lay staring at the water-stained ceiling, his head on my chest. Your trouble, Levi Harper, he murmured, fingers doodling lazy hearts on my skin. The best kind, I replied, but inside, the hook snagged deeper. This wasn't just fucking, it was revelation, him unraveling the knots I'd tied around my heart since Dad shipped out to Kandahar and never came back whole. Elias got it, the silence after loss, the way love could be a quiet anchor instead of a fireworks show. He shared stories of his ex, Marcus, The golden boy who'd promised forever then ghosted for academia's brighter lights, leaving Elias to question if he was built for the spotlight or just the footnotes. "You're not a footnote," I told him one night, over lukewarm pizza pilfered from the staff lounge. "You're the whole damn narrative." He blushed, that boyish flush belying his 34 years, and pulled me close, our love-making slower than exploratory, learning the arch of his back, the way he gasped my name like a prayer. But paradise has termites. My old crew, Jake and the frat bros who'd been my shield since orientation, started sniffing around. "Where you been, man?" "Hiding in the nerd cave." Jake ribbed at a dive bar on Southview, nursing a pitcher of Labatt's that tasted like regret. I shrugged it off, but the pressure built. Invites to Rager's, shots lined up like accusations. "Come on, Levi, don't go soft on us." Soft. The word stung, laced with their casual homophobia, the no-homo caveats after two tight bro hugs, the jokes about fairy tales that landed like gut punches. I hadn't told them about Elias, not yet. He was mine, fragile as a first edition, and spilling to these clowns felt like handing over a loaded gun. The betrayal brewed slow, fermented in a weak moment. Midterms hit like a freight train, and I bombed econ. Again, spiraling into a bender that left me puking in the arboretum at dawn. Jake found me, dragged me back to his off-campus dump, and in the haze of Gatorade and guilt, I cracked. "It's this guy? Librarian. Older. Makes me feel shit, like I matter." Jake's eyes lit up, predatory. "No way, dude, a silver fox?" "Spill." I did, fragments tumbling out. Elias's laugh like wind chimes, the way he recited Lorca under his breath while reshelving Spanish lit. Jake hooped, slapping my back too hard. "Epic man. We gotta meet him. Crash the library, make it a thing." I laughed it off, but the seed was planted. A week later, during a study break that devolved into shots at the brown jug, Jake cornered me. "Your boy's got secrets. Leviticus heard from a TA. He's got some scandal, X or something. You sure he's worth ditching us for?" The doubt wormed in, amplified by my insecurities. Was I just his rebound, the wild kid to spice up his quiet life? Elias had mentioned Marcus once, offhand, a 10-year betrayal that left him gun-shy, but never details. That night, alone in a borrowed twin bed, I scrolled his sparse socials. He wasn't big on Instagram, preferring Goodreads haikus, piecing together ghosts, a tagged photo from 5 years back, Marcus arm-in-arm at a Boston literary gala, Elias beaming like he'd won the Pulitzer. Jealousy twisted, ugly, and American. That manifest destiny urge to claim, to conquer. The next evening, when Elias greeted me with a kiss that tasted like Earl Grey, I probed. "Tell me about him." "Marcus. All of it." He stiffened, setting down his pen. "Levi, it's ancient history." "Not to me." My voice cracked, demanding. He sighed, relenting. How Marcus had cheated with a colleague, leaked Elias's dissertation notes for clout, then bolted, leaving him blackballed in academia circles. It broke me for a while. Taught me silence is safer. I held him then, fierce, but the poison spread. Jake kept at it, texting memes of daddy issues that hit too close, and one dumb, drunk night after a Wolverines loss, I vented to the group chat. "Librarian's got baggage." X stole his thunder. "Kinda hot, though." Emojis flew, then Jake's reply. "Bet we can dig dirt." For the lulz. I didn't stop them. Reckless Levi, always chasing the high, ignored the red flags waving like rally towels at the big house. I justified it. Harmless fun, right? But when Jake showed up at Hatcher the next afternoon, flanked by two meatheads, hooting as they browsed the erotica section, I knew I'd fucked up. Elias was mid-shift, polite as ever, but his eyes found mine across the room, wounded, questioning. Jake clapped me on the back, loud. "Yo, Lev's told us all about you, Mr. Whitman. Spill the tea on that X-drama. Sounds lit." The color drained from Elias's face, glasses slipping down his nose. Silence crashed down, heavier than any book. I stammered. "It's not," but the damage was done. He excused himself, vanishing into the back, and when I followed, the office door locked in my face. "Go home, Levi," his voice muffled through the wood. "We need space." I pounded once, twice, then slunk away, Jake's laughter chasing me into the sleet. Betrayal tasted like ash, and for the first time, the reckless kid in me glimpsed the wreckage left behind. Winter deepened, but our frost was colder. I haunted the library's edges, a ghost in flannel, watching Elias from afar, his smiles tighter, his recommendations mechanical. Texts went unanswered, My voicemails, a jumble of apologies and pleas, echoed into void. I was stupid, Elias. They mean nothing. You do. Campus life ground on, a meat grinder of finals and forced festive cheer, peppermint mochas at Zingerman's, ugly sweater parties I skipped. Jake and the crew turned sour, dubbing me library loser. Their invites drying up like the ink on rejected applications. Isolation hit hard, the kind that amplifies every echo. Dad's last call from the VA hospital, slurred with painkillers. Mom's silence after I came out, a chasm wider than Lake Michigan. Rock bottom came on Christmas Eve. The library closed, but the doors unlocked for stragglers. I broke in, don't ask how, desperation's a hell of a locksmith, and curled up in our nook, clutching that dog-eared leaves of grass like a lifeline. Snow muffled the world outside, but inside, memories roared. Elias's fingers in my hair, his whispers of anyone lived in a pretty how town. The way he'd say my name like it was a sonnet. Footsteps, soft, deliberate. I looked up, tear-streaked, to find him there, coat dusted with flakes, thermos in hand. You shouldn't be here, he said, but he sat, close but not touching. I'm sorry. I choked, the words fracturing. I betrayed you. For what? Laughs from assholes who don't give a damn. You're everything, Elias. The silence. It taught me to listen, finally. He exhaled, long and shaky, eyes tracing my face like a familiar passage. Betrayal cuts deepest when it's from love's hand. Pause. But silence forgives, too, if you're willing to rebuild. We talked till the bells tolled midnight, truths spilling like confessions in a cathedral. He admitted the fear. Me. Too young, too wild, a comet he'd catch fire chasing. I owned the chaos, the need to prove I was worthy beyond the wreckage. Dawn crept in, painting the stacks gold, and when he leaned in, our kiss was tentative, a bridge over the chasm, salty with tears, sweet with second chances. Spring thawed and arbor slow, like a hangover lifting, drips from icicles turning to birdsong, the Huron swelling with meltwater that mirrored the flood in my chest. Elias and I rebuilt brick by careful brick, no grand gestures, just the quiet architecture of trust. Shared shifts where he'd let me co-catalog, my hands brushing his over-faded spines. Walks along the Nichols Arboretum, cherry blossoms shedding petals like whispered promises. He introduced me to his world, book club potlucks and Ipsy co-ops, where queer-lit nerds dissected Wolf over vegan chili. Open mics at Connor O'Neill's, where I'd strum off-key covers of waltzings for dreamers, and he'd clap like I'd headline Carnegie. But love's not linear. It's a goddamn Mobius strip, twisting back on itself. My junior year ramped up, prereqs for poli-sci that clashed with library hours, a part-time gig slinging lattes at nights that left me smelling like espresso and exhaustion. Elias's contract renewed, but whispers circulated, budget cuts looming, his unconventional role under scrutiny from the dean, a stuffy relic who eyed the lifestyle section like it was contraband. We fought our first real fight over it, in the parking lot behind Hatcher, rain sluicing down windshields like accusations. I'd suggested he fight back. Petitions, rallies, channel that Baldwin fire he loved quoting. Stand up, Elias. This is America, land of the free, right? His laugh was bitter, edged with old wounds. Free for some, Levi. Marcus taught me that, paraded our life for grants, then erased me when it suited. You think I haven't tried? Silence is my protest now. I exploded, the reckless kid rearing up. Silence. That's surrender. Hiding like we're back in the 50s. Words flew, sharp as hail, me calling him complacent, him labeling me naive, a bull in the china shop of compromise. I stormed off, tires squealing on wet asphalt, crashing at Jake's despite the radio silence between us. He'd texted once, post-betrayal. Sorry, bro, heat of the moment. I'd left him on read. The fight festered, a low-grade fever. I dove into activism, LGBTQ club meetings in the union, chalking rainbows on sidewalks during Pride Week prep, but it felt hollow without him, echoes without harmony. Elias withdrew, shifts overlapping less, his texts curt, busy week. Talk soon. I drowned in doubts, the old voices hissing. You're too much, Levi. Burn too bright, scare him off. Crisis peaked in May, finals week a pressure cooker of all-nighters and anxiety. Elias called at 3 a.m., voice cracked like old vellum. Come to the library. Now. I bolted, barefoot in boxers and a hoodie, the campus quad blooming under street lamps. He was in the rare books room, illuminated by a single desk lamp, papers strewn like battlefield casualties. They're cutting my position, he said flatly, handing me a memo stamped with the university seal. Effective summer. Redundancy. Rage boiled up, hot and immediate. Fuck that. We'll sue, protest. No. His hand on my arm, steadying. I've got savings. A friend's opening in Toledo's public system. But his eyes, God, those eyes, held the storm. Fear of starting over, of loving again only to lose. I pulled him close, our embrace fierce against the chill seeping through the windows. Then we go together. Road trip, Route 66 style. You, me, a stack of audiobooks. It was half joke, half prayer, but he softened, lips finding mine in the lamplight, desperate, devouring, bodies crashing together on the reading table, papers scattering like confetti. We made love there, amid the dust motes dancing like fireflies, his gasps muffled against my neck, my fingers mapping the freckles across his shoulders like constellations. It was cathartic, a reclaiming. Me learning his rhythms, slow and deep. Him yielding to my urgency, whispering, I love you, reckless boy, as we shattered together. After, wrapped in his coat on the floor, he confessed the rest. Marcus had resurfaced, emailing olive branches. Miss our collaborations. A ploy for references, no doubt. It stirred things. Made me question. Us. Jealousy flared, but I swallowed it, channeling the growth he'd nurtured. Question away. But know this. I'm not him. I'm the guy who'll fight for the quiet, for you. We talked till sunrise, vulnerabilities bared like uncatalogued manuscripts. His fear of abandonment rooted in a father who bailed for the bottle. My terror of stillness, of becoming the ghost dad left behind. Resolution came piecemeal. I rallied the club, petitions circulated, alumni letters penned, but Elias chose grace over gauntlets, accepting the Toledo gig with a quiet dignity that humbled me. Not surrender, he said, packing boxes in his apartment, me hauling them to a U-Haul under a sky bruised with thunderheads. Strategy. Love's a long game. The drive south was pure Americana. Waffle House stops in Indiana, where we'd split pecan waffles and debate Steinbeck's Dust Bowls. Motels off I-75 with neon signs flickering vacancy, like Morse code for second acts. In the cab, his hand on my thigh, we'd listen to podcasts on oral histories, queer voices from Stonewall to Obergefell, reminding us we were threads in a larger tapestry. But conflict crested in Cincinnati, a layover night in a riverfront hotel. I'd been cagey about my own news. An internship offer in D.C., poli-sci gold, but it meant diverging paths come fall. Guilt gnawed. I'd hidden it, fearing it'd tip the scales. Over Skyline bourbon on the balcony, I spilled. It's a chance to make noise, Elias. Real change. His face shuddered, the city lights reflecting in his glasses like distant fires. And us? Another detour on your manifest destiny. The argument erupted. Fireworks over the Ohio. Me defending ambition as love's fuel. Him accusing evasion. Echoes of Marcus's ghosts. I won't be the pause button on your life, Levi. He slammed the sliding door, leaving me to the humid night, heart pounding like a bass drum solo. Dawn found us fractured, him on the balcony smoking a rare cigarette, me pacing the carpet worn thin by 1,000 regrets. I love you, I said, voice raw. But love shouldn't cage. We'll bridge it. Weekends, calls, the whole rom-com shtick. He turned, exhale curling like question marks. Bridge or burn? We chose bridge, tentative, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of ash and hope. Bodies reconnecting in the queen bed, slow and sacred, learning forgiveness in the arch of a spine, the hitch of breath. Summer unfolded in Toledo's quieter pulse. Elias settling into the public library, a community hub buzzing with story hours and ESL classes. Me crashing weekends, trading DC prep for bonfires by Lake Erie, where we'd roast marshmallows and read aloud from the fire next time. Baldwin's words a balm on our scars. Yet the high tide of romance couldn't drown the undercurrents. Jake resurfaced via Facebook, a half-assed apology laced with miss the crew nostalgia, tempting the old pull. I blocked him, but the recklessness lingered. A bar fight in a dive near the mommy, knuckles splitting on some guy's jaw over a spilled beer and a slur. Elias patched me up in his kitchen, iodine stinging like truth. This isn't you anymore, he said, bandaging with gentle fingers. Or is it? I met his gaze, the mirror forcing confrontation. It's the part I'm killing. For us. Autumn loomed, DC's siren call growing louder. Internships with senators drafting bills on equality, the kind of noise I'd craved. But leaving Elias felt like amputating a limb, the silence between us now a symphony we both conducted. Fall hit DC like a revolution. Cherry leaves carpeting the mall in crimson revolt, the air crisp with exhaust and ambition. I dove in headfirst. Hill briefings at dawn, networking mixers where suits swapped cards like poker chips, late nights drafting memos on marriage equality amendments. The internship was rocket fuel, propelling me from reckless kid to rising star, as my advisor gushed over coffee at Eastern Market. But success rang hollow without Elias. Our weekends shrinking to Amtrak Johnson FaceTime calls that glitched like bad omens. He thrived in Toledo, curating exhibits on Midwestern queer history, photo essays from the 70s leather bars, oral tapes from ACT Up marches that drew crowds and quiet acclaim. It's home, he'd say, voice warm over the line, showing me virtual tours of the revitalized wing he'd spearheaded. But his eyes, even pixelated, held shadows. The age gap yawning wider with my meteors, his mentions of settling in laced with subtext. Conflict simmered, bubbling over during Thanksgiving. I skipped the family train wreck in Ohio, mom's passive digs, sister's overcompensating cheer, for a neutral Detroit meetup. We holed up in a Motown Airbnb, walls papered in faded Elvis posters, and cooked turkey with all the fixings, Springsteen crooning Thunder Road from the Bluetooth. Laughter flowed easy at first, wine loosening tongues, but as pie cooled on the sill, the unspoken erupted. "You're changing," he said, fork scraping china. "DC's got you polished, Levi. Suits and schmoozing. It's not the boy in the stacks." I bristled, the fork clattering. "And you're shrinking into some librarian stereotype. Safe, silent. I thought we were building, not bunkering." It escalated, words weaponized, me accusing stasis, him charging flightiness. Marcus was the same, chasing headlines, leaving footnotes behind. The name drop landed like a sucker punch, reopening scars. I hurled the betrayal back. At least I didn't hide behind pages when it got hard. And stormed into the night, Detroit's streetlights blurring through tears. We circled wagons separately, him to a friend's for pie and platitudes, me crashing a dive bar on Woodward, nursing IPAs until last call. Dawn found us reconciling on a bench by the Detroit River, wind whipping off the water like accusations. "I hate fighting you," I whispered, hand finding his. "Hate's just love inverted," he replied, quoting some poet I'd yet to meet, and pulled me close. The makeup was raw, urgent. Back in the Airbnb, clothes shed in a trail from door to bed, bodies colliding with the force of withheld storms. His hands, calloused from shelving, gripped my hips like anchors. My mouth traced the lines time had etched on his chest, whispering devotions in the language we'd built. But the real high tide crashed in December, a bicoastal blizzard stranding flights and fraying nerves. Elias called mid-blizzard, voice trembling. "It's Marcus. He's terminal. Liver cancer. Wants to make amends before." The words hollowed me out, jealousy warring with pity. Marcus, the villain in our origin story, now a specter begging absolution. Elias flew to Boston alone, despite my pleas. "Let me be your +1, insisting. "This is my closure, Levi, not ours." Radio silence stretched 3 days, each hour a knife twist. I paced my sublet in Foggy Bottom, the Capitol Dome mocking from the window, Whitman mocking from the shelf. I am large, I contain multitudes. But multitudes didn't include the sake, the fear he'd slip back into old patterns. He returned changed, thinner, eyes hollowed like unread volumes. Over mulled wine at a Georgetown cafe, he unburdened. Marcus's bedside confessions, the affair's pettiness magnified by regret, a plea for forgiveness Elias granted, not for him, but for peace. "It freed me," he said, hand over mine. "To choose you, fully. No ghosts." Relief flooded, but so did truth's underbelly. And DC? Me, climbing this ladder, will it free us, or fracture? His smile was soft, resolute. "Fractures make mosaics. We'll adapt. Visits, calls, that silence we love." We did, threading the needle through winter's weave. New Year's in Toledo, fireworks over the river syncing with our pulses, Valentine's in DC, him enduring metro crowds for a Nationals game, cheering my nerd-dom with hot dogs and heckles. Spring brought balance, me lobbying for library funding bills that echoed his passions, him guest curating a virtual queer-lit series I moderated from afar. Climax crested in June, Pride Month, a kaleidoscope of rainbows and reckonings. Elias proposed a cross-country pilgrimage, Route 66, that dream deferred, to mark 2 years since the stacks. We loaded a rented Mustang convertible, top down despite June heat, playlist shuffling Dylan to Hosier. The drive was epic. Chicago deep dish detours, Oklahoma dust devils dancing like dervishes, Arizona sunsets painting canyons in fire. But midway, in a Gallup, New Mexico motel with adobe walls and a saguaro view, the storm broke. I'd gotten the offer, full-time Hill staffer, post-grad, a dream gig chaining me to D.C. It's now or never, I confessed, heart hammering. Elias sat on the bed's edge, motel lamp casting halos. And us? Another pin on the map. Tears pricked. This was it, the crossroads Whitman warned of. I choose you. Quit the climb, come west with me? Or east? Anywhere. He searched my face, then laughed, free, full. Idiot. I choose us too. Toledo's mine, but summers? Sabbaticals? We'll weave it, Levi. Love in silence doesn't mean stasis, it means harmony. We sealed it under star-pricked skies, bodies entwined on a blanket by a desert fire. Slow, sacred, the roads hum our lullaby. No rings, no vows, just promises etched in sand. To fight fair, to listen deep, to love the quiet spaces between. Back east, I graduated in a blur of gowns and cheers, Elias in the stands, his bouquet of wildflowers trumping any diploma. We split summer between cities, fall finding equilibrium. Me on the hill, drafting whispers into law. Him in the heartland, voicing the silenced. Betrayal scar faded to silver, a reminder, recklessness refined by love's steady hand. We weren't perfect, MMA fights over forgotten calls, jealousy flares like summer storms, but in the lulls, the silences, we bloomed. Human, messy, American, two souls navigating the manifest of us, one quiet page at a time. Years later, at a Toledo reading, me guest poeting Baldwin riffs to his curated crowd. I caught his eye across the room, that private smile blooming. I celebrate myself. I recited, but meant us. And in the hush that followed, applause rising like dawn, I knew. The reckless student had learned to love not in thunder, but in the profound, enduring quiet.